Tomorrow morning, before you are awake enough to decide anything, your body is going to do something without asking you. Your arms will go up, your spine will arch, your jaw will crack open. Every muscle from your fingertips to the soles of your feet will contract at once, hold, and release. And for about 6 seconds, you will not be driving. You think you know why. You were lying still all night, you're stiff, you're loosening up, working out the kinks. That's wrong. Not slightly wrong. Backwards. Because a sheep fetus does this. Inside the womb, floating in warm fluid, weightless, having never stood, never walked, never carried its own weight for a single second of its existence. It has never been stiff. It has nothing to loosen. There are no kinks. And it stretches anyway. Rhythmically, repeatedly. The exact same movement you will make tomorrow morning. Fish do it. Birds do it. Lizards do it. Your dog does it. Every single time it stands up, and you have watched it happen 1,000 times without once wondering why. This behavior shows up across animals whose last common ancestor was swimming in an ocean somewhere north of 300 million years ago. It is older than mammals, older than the dinosaurs, older than the spine you're going to arch tomorrow.
And here is the part that should bother you. It is not voluntary. It is not voluntary. Try it right now. Do the real one. The one that screws your face up and makes your whole body shudder and ends in that involuntary groan. You can't. You'll do an impression of it. You'll raise your arms and pull, and it will feel like nothing, like a polite handshake with your own body. Because the real one isn't yours to give. It cannot be faked on command. Something else does it. By the end of this video, you're going to understand what those 6 seconds actually are. And I'll tell you now, it has almost nothing to do with your muscles being tight and everything to do with the fact that you spent the whole night chemically paralyzed. You're going to find out who gives the order. And you're going to understand why, every morning of your life, your body runs a hunting ritual for a hunt that is never coming. It has a name. Almost nobody knows it. Let's start with the lie.
The story you've been told goes like this. You lie still for 8 hours. Blood pools, muscles tighten, fluid settles. You wake up stiff, like a hinge that's rusted overnight, and you stretch to work the rust out. Simple, mechanical. It's the same logic as a door that squeaks until you open it a few times. It's such a satisfying explanation that nobody checks it. So let's check it. If stretching were about undoing stiffness, then the amount you stretch should track the amount of stiffness. 8 hours in bed should produce more of it than 4. A hard mattress should produce more than a soft one. Sleeping in a bad position should produce a monster. None of that is what happens. You do it after a 20-minute nap on the sofa. Muscles that have had no time to seize up at all, and your body still runs the full routine. Arms up, spine arched, jaw open, the whole thing. Same intensity, same 6 seconds. You do it when you're bored in a meeting. You have been sitting for 40 minutes, not 8 hours, and you're not stiff, you're understimulated, and up go the arms. You do it when you're waking up from anesthesia. You do it coming out of a fever. You do it sometimes for no reason you can name in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, and it arrives like a sneeze. You feel it coming. You don't choose it, and once it starts, you couldn't stop it if someone paid you.
Now look at the other direction. You spend a 9-hour flight folded into a seat designed by someone who hates you. You are, by any definition, stiff, genuinely, mechanically compressed. You stand up in the aisle and you rub your neck. You roll your shoulders. You do a deliberate, conscious, completely voluntary loosening up. But you don't do the thing. The involuntary one doesn't fire. That's the crack in the story. 9 hours of real stiffness gets you a voluntary rub. 20 minutes of dozing gets you the full-body involuntary event. The trigger isn't stiffness. The trigger is the transition. Every single time this reflex fires, you are crossing a line between two states of consciousness. Asleep to awake, drowsy to alert, bored to engaged, anesthetized to conscious. The body is not responding to how long it was still. It's responding to a change of state, which raises a question nobody asks. If this isn't maintenance, if it's not about the muscles at all, then what is it about? And why does it have to happen exactly at the moment your consciousness changes gear? To answer that, we need the word for it, because this thing has been named, studied, and cataloged for over a century. And it is not called stretching.
The word is pandiculation. Pandiculation. From the Latin pandiculare, to stretch oneself. And it does not mean what you think it means. Pandiculation is not stretching. Stretching is what you do at the gym, a voluntary, targeted, sustained pull on a specific muscle you have decided is tight. Pandiculation is something else entirely. It's defined as the involuntary whole-body contraction of the soft tissues, not a pull, a contraction, that occurs in most animal species and is tied specifically to transitions between cyclic biological behaviors. Above all, the sleep-wake rhythm. Read that again. It's a contraction, not a lengthening. When you do the real morning one, you are not relaxing your muscles. You are firing them, hard, simultaneously. You are putting your entire musculature under maximum voluntary grade tension while your conscious mind sits in the passenger seat and watches. Then, you release it all at once. That's why it feels so good, by the way, and it's the first clue that we've had the whole thing upside down. A gym stretch feels like relief. Pandiculation feels like a discharge. Those are different sensations because they are different events.
And then there's the other half, because that jaw crack that comes with it isn't a coincidence, and it isn't a separate thing you happen to do at the same time. A yawn is a pandiculation. That's the formal position in the literature. Yawning is considered a special case of pandiculation, the same reflex executed by the musculature of the mouth, the respiratory system, and the upper spine instead of the arms and back. It's not stretch and also yawn. It's one behavior running in two territories. When both fire together, the arms going up while the jaw cracks open, researchers have a name for the combined event. They call it the stretch-yawning syndrome. You have experienced the stretch-yawning syndrome roughly every morning of your life. You have almost certainly never heard the phrase. That gap between how universal this is and how invisible it is the whole reason nobody has ever questioned the stiffness story. You can't interrogate a thing you've never noticed. But here's what makes the stiffness story more than just wrong. It's not that the evidence is thin. It's that the evidence is in the womb.
In 1989, a researcher named A.F. Fraser published a paper in Applied Animal Behavior Science with a title that sounds like nothing: The Phenomenon of Pandiculation in the Kinetic Behavior of the Sheep Fetus. What Fraser was doing was watching unborn lambs move. And what he documented is one of the strangest facts about being an animal that almost nobody outside a narrow corner of behavioral science has ever heard. The sheep fetus pandiculates inside the uterus, suspended in amniotic fluid, weeks before birth. The unborn lamb performs systematic, coordinated, whole-body stretch contractions, the same movement in the same compound pattern that the adult sheep will perform every morning for the rest of its life. Now, hold that against the stiffness theory for a second. That fetus has never stood up. It has never borne weight. It has never held a posture, never been compressed, never lain on one side too long. It is floating. It is, in the most literal sense available, weightless. Gravity is doing nothing to it. There is no fluid pooling. There is no rusted hinge. There is nothing to loosen. And it does it anyway. You cannot be working the kinks out of a body that has never had a kink.
And it isn't just sheep. Human fetuses do it too, and we can watch. Ultrasound, and later three-dimensional and four-dimensional sonography turned the womb into a window, and researchers used it. The French physician Olivier Wolosinski, who has spent a career on this, documented fetal yawning through sonography and argued something remarkable about it: that fetal yawning indicates harmonious progress in the development of both the brainstem and the peripheral neuromuscular function. Not the fetus is tired. Not the fetus is bored. The yawn is a readout. It's the developing nervous system running the pattern, and in running it, wiring itself. In 2012, a team at Durham University, Nadia Riesland, Brian Francis, and James Mason, published work in PLOS One doing something painstaking, carefully distinguishing genuine fetal yawns from ordinary non-yawn mouth openings and tracking them from 24 to 36 weeks of gestation. Real yawns properly identified, counted, and mapped across development. The picture that comes out of this literature is that fetal pandiculation is not a curiosity. It's argued to be a mechanism that influences the functional determination of the moving parts of the musculoskeletal system and contributes to articular development, the development of the joints themselves.
Sit with the implication. The fetus isn't stretching because it has a body that needs maintaining. The fetus is stretching to build the body. The movement comes first. The joint forms around the movement. You did this. Before you had a name, before you had a thought, before you had ever slept a night or been stiff a morning, you were doing the exact movement you will do tomorrow. You did it in the dark, in silence, in fluid, running a program you did not learn on a body you had not yet met. And it never stopped. It's been running, unbroken, every day since.
So stiffness cannot be the trigger. That's what the womb kills. And I want to be exact about what just died because it matters. Not the stiffness itself. You really will be stiff tomorrow morning, and we're going to get to why. What the womb kills is the idea that the stiffness is what causes the reflex. The fetus has the reflex without the stiffness. So the cause is somewhere else. Which leaves us with a much better question. If pandiculation isn't triggered by stiffness, if it's triggered by the transition out of sleep, then we need to know what sleep actually does to you. Because the answer is worse than you think. You didn't spend last night resting. You spent it paralyzed.
Here's something you experienced last night and have no memory of. For a significant chunk of the night, every time you entered REM sleep, the stage where the dreaming happens, your body was functionally paralyzed. Not relaxed, not very still. Paralyzed. Motor output actively suppressed. Your muscles were disconnected from your brain by a mechanism that was working hard the entire time. It's called REM atonia, and it is not a passive thing. It is not your muscles going slack because nothing is telling them to move. That's the intuition, and it's wrong in the same way the stiffness story is wrong. There is a dedicated piece of neural machinery whose entire job is to hold you down.
Here's roughly how it works. Deep in your brainstem sits a piece of machinery that does exactly one thing. The moment you drop into a dream, it reaches down into your spinal cord and shuts the door between your brain and your muscles. Every command your dreaming brain generates, and it generates plenty because in the dream you are running, falling, fighting, speaking, travels down and hits that door. The signal is real. The muscle never hears it. There's a way to picture this that I find genuinely useful. Think about a flight simulator. A pilot climbs into the box, and for 2 hours they fly a full mission. They pull back on the stick, they bank hard, they fight a stall at 400 feet and lose. Every input they make is real. The same hands, the same commands, the same training they'd use at 30,000 feet with 300 people behind them. And the actual aircraft never moves an inch. It's sitting in a hangar somewhere, in the dark, cold, untouched. The commands were real. The plane was disconnected. That's your night. Your brain isn't idling while you dream. It's flying the mission. It's generating every command it would generate if you were genuinely running from something. The full instruction set at full strength in real time with your whole motor cortex behind it. And the aircraft is in the hangar. That's the part people get wrong about dreaming. A dream isn't a film you sit and watch. It's a flight you fly in a body that has been quietly unplugged from the controls. In 2012, Patricia Brooks and John Peever at the University of Toronto went looking for what the door is actually made of. They found it. Two of the brain's own chemical breaks, GABA and glycine, pinning your motor cells shut. Block them, and the paralysis lifts. The muscle comes back online in the middle of the dream. But they found something else, and it's the detail I can't stop thinking about. When they blocked both of them, when they took away the two things everyone assumed were doing the whole job, the paralysis still held. Something else was still holding the body down. Something they couldn't identify. Read that again. We have a mechanism inside your skull that switches your entire body off every single night. Researchers neutralized the two chemicals responsible, and it didn't let go. There is at least one more break in there that we have not named. It is running tonight. We don't know what it is. And we know what happens when this system fails, because it does fail. It's a real condition, REM sleep behavior disorder. And in it, the door doesn't hold. Go back to the simulator for a second. The pilot is still in the box, still flying the mission, still pulling the stick, still fighting the stall. Nothing has changed about the dream at all. But now, the hangar is open, and the plane is plugged in. People with this condition act their dreams out. They run, they shout, they throw punches at nothing. They leap out of bed and hit walls, entirely asleep, entirely unaware, because the thing that was supposed to keep the flight inside the box let go. People wake up on the floor with no memory of getting there. Partners get hurt. That is what the atonia is protecting you from. Every night, without exception, something in your brainstem makes the decision to disconnect you from your own body and holds that decision for hours so that the dream stays in the dream. Now, come back to the morning. You are lying there.
For hours, you have been switched off, motor system suppressed, muscles disconnected, the whole machine idling in the dark with the connection deliberately severed. And now, you have to come back online. The paralysis has to lift. The connection has to be reestablished. Your brain has to hand control of your body back to you. That's the transition. That's the exact moment this reflex fires. And the question that should be forming right now is, how does the system know the reconnection worked? Because reattaching your nervous system to your body is not a small operation, and something in there has to check. Before we get to the check, though, there's one more thing the night did to you. Something happened in the muscle itself while it sat there, switched off in the dark. Your muscles didn't just rest. They set.
To explain this, I need to give you one word, and it's the most important word in this video after pandiculation. Thixotropy. Thixotropy. It's a property of certain gels. They're stiff when undisturbed, and they turn fluid when you shake them. Ketchup is thixotropic. It sits in the bottle like a solid, refusing to move, and the instant you hit it or shake it, it flows. Your muscle is thixotropic. This isn't a metaphor. This is one of the most solid findings in motor physiology, laid out by Uwe Prosky and Simon Gandavia in a 2012 review in Physiological Reviews, one of the most rigorous journals in the field, titled The Proprioceptive Senses.
Here's the mechanism, and it's beautiful. Inside your muscle fibers are proteins that grab onto each other to generate force. They're called cross bridges. When you contract a muscle, they attach, pull, release, attach again. That's how force happens. But when a muscle relaxes and is then left alone, really left alone, undisturbed for a long time, the way your muscles were left alone last night, about 1% of those cross bridges spontaneously form new attachments. Not force-generating ones. They're not pulling. They're just stuck, bonded. Idle bridges that formed on their own in the dark. Because nothing disturbed them.
And they stay there. Prosk and Gandavia are explicit. Those attachments remain in place for long periods if the muscle is left undisturbed, and they give the muscle passive stiffness in response to a stretch. So here's your night. Hour after hour, your motor system is clamped off. Your muscles are not moving. They cannot move. The paralysis is holding them. And in that absolute stillness, cross bridge by cross bridge, your muscles quietly gel. They set like fat cooling in a pan. Not damaged, not injured, just settled into a state. You genuinely are stiff in the morning. That part of the folk story is true.
And you know the feeling of those bonds breaking, even if you've never had a word for it. It's that faint, granular, almost crackle you feel deep in a shoulder on the first real movement of the day. Not a joint popping, something finer than that and more spread out. A kind of internal resistance that gives way all at once and then simply isn't there anymore. That's the gel. That's a few billion idle bonds letting go at the same time. You have felt that every morning of your life. It's the sensation of your body coming unstuck from itself.
But now, watch how the folk story gets the causation exactly backwards. The stiffness isn't the problem the stretch solves. Because here's the thing about those idle cross bridges. They're not just in the big muscles. They're in the muscle spindles. The spindles are the sensors. They are tiny, specialized structures buried inside your muscles whose only job is to tell your brain how long each muscle currently is and how fast it's changing. They are your position sense. They are the reason you can touch your nose with your eyes closed. Prosky and Gandavia call them the principal proprioceptors for the senses of limb position and movement. And they are made of the same stuff. They gel too.
That's the part that breaks it open. A spindle that has been sitting undisturbed for 8 hours is not a reliable instrument. Its mechanical baseline has drifted. It's a thermometer that's been left in a drawer and now reads 3 degrees off. And it doesn't know, and your brain doesn't know, and it's about to be asked where your arm is. So the real situation at 6 a.m. is not my muscles are tight. The real situation is your body's entire sensor array has gone out of calibration overnight, and your brain is about to reconnect to it and start trusting what it says. Your muscles set overnight, but your brain doesn't know that yet. Unless something tells it.
So, put the pieces on the table. 1. For hours, your motor system was clamped off by a dedicated paralysis mechanism, and now it has to reconnect. 2. While it was clamped off, every muscle and every sensor in your body silently drifted out of calibration. 3. At the exact moment of reconnection, not before, not after, your body executes an involuntary maximum contraction of everything at once. You already know what that is. You've just never had it described in these terms. That's a power-on self-test.
It's what every complex machine does when it boots. Before your laptop gives you a screen, it checks its own hardware. And remember the simulator? All night, you were the pilot in the box, flying hard, going nowhere, the aircraft sitting untouched in the dark on the other side of the wall. But now the box opens. Now the aircraft is real, and you are about to actually fly it. So before it taxis, the crew cycles the control surfaces, full deflection, every direction, watching each one move. You don't cycle the controls because they're stiff. You cycle them because you are about to trust your life to them, and you need to know they respond. That's the argument. And it has a name attached.
In 2011, a manual therapist and researcher named Luis Bertolucci published a paper in the Journal of Bodywork and Movement Therapies with a title that is, unusually for a scientific paper, an actual question. Pandiculation, nature's way of maintaining the functional integrity of the myofascial system? Now, I want to be straight with you about the evidence here, because this channel doesn't oversell. Bertolucci's paper is a hypothesis. It's a proposal published in a bodywork journal, not a settled result from a lab. The paralysis is established. The thixotropy is established. This part, the why, is a well-argued idea that fits the facts, and you should hold it as an idea. But it fits them extraordinarily well. Bertolucci's argument is that pandiculation preserves the integrative role of the myofascial system, the continuous web of muscle and connective tissue that runs through your whole body, by maintaining appropriate physiological connections and by modulating the pre-stress state of that system through regularly activating the tonic musculature. He suggested pandiculation and yawning play a significant role in the autoregulation of the locomotor system, and noted that preliminary work on spontaneous human pandiculation showed it restored myofascial integrity and helped the transition between cognitive states of rest and attention. Strip out the technical language, and here is what it says. The pandiculation is the body shaking the ketchup bottle.
That single maximum contraction, every muscle, at once, at full tension, held, released, does exactly the thing that thixotropy demands. It disturbs every gelled crossbridge in your body simultaneously. It breaks the idle bonds. It refluidizes the system. It drags every muscle spindle in your body through its full range in one violent sweep and forces every one of them to report a fresh reading. It is a calibration event. The stretch isn't undoing the stiffness. The stretch is using the stiffness, running the system to its limits specifically so that the sensors get a full-scale reading, and the map your brain holds of where your body is gets overwritten with today's data instead of last night's. That's why you can't fake it. A voluntary stretch is you choosing to pull one muscle you already have a model of. Pandiculation is the system running a test on the model itself, and you can't consciously run a check on the very apparatus you'd be using to run it. The test has to come from underneath you. It has to come from a level you don't have access to. Which means something down there has to give the order. So who does?
Scientists traced this reflex back to one of the oldest regions of your brain. Not the part that makes decisions. The part that keeps you alive. It's called the paraventricular nucleus, and it sits in the hypothalamus, the machinery that runs your temperature, your thirst, your stress, the hormonal weather of being alive. This is not the neighborhood where you decide things. This is the neighborhood where your body decides things and informs you afterwards. You have met this part of your brain before, even if you never had a name for it. It's the thing that makes you shiver before you've noticed you're cold. It's the thing that makes you thirsty in the middle of a sentence. It's the thing that turns your stomach at a smell a full second before you've consciously worked out what the smell is. You don't experience any of those as decisions. You experience them as news. Something already ran the calculation, already reached a verdict, and what arrives in your awareness is the memo. That's the department this order comes from.
And we know that's where it comes from because decades ago, researchers including Gianluigi Gessa and Antonio Argiolis found the switch. They were injecting compounds into rat brains and watching what came back out as behavior.
And when they injected ACTH, one of the body's core arousal signals, part of the same system that hauls you up out of sleep every morning, the animal stretched and yawned. Not sometimes, reliably. You can trigger this behavior in a mammal by adding a molecule.
Look at what that means for you. The morning stretch is not a response to how your muscles feel. It is downstream of ACTH, the arousal and stress axis. It is downstream of oxytocin, of dopamine. It's wired into the same hypothalamic machinery that runs your circadian rhythm, your cortisol, your transition from sleep into the day. The order doesn't come from your muscles saying, "we're tight." The order comes from a chemical cascade in the oldest part of your brain, firing on a schedule that reaches down and takes your skeletal muscles, the ones you think of as yours, the ones you use to type and gesture and hold things, and uses them, briefly, completely, without consulting you. For 6 seconds every morning, your voluntary musculature is not voluntary. It has been requisitioned.
Think about the last time you woke up on your own. No alarm, nobody calling you. For a few seconds there, you weren't making decisions. You weren't planning your day. You weren't even fully you yet. And your body already knew exactly what to do. That decision had been made long before your conscious mind showed up. You are not stretching. You are being stretched. And this is where it stops being about you at all.
Go back to Fraser's other 1989 paper, the comparative one. Pandiculation, the comparative phenomenon of systematic stretching. What Fraser was cataloging there was how far this thing goes. Poultry, dogs, cats, horses. He identifies a bodily care and self-maintenance function of pandiculation that restores muscle homeostasis across all of them. And in that broader literature, the pattern that emerges is the thing I find genuinely eerie. Systematic, coordinated pandiculations occur in a compound pattern of almost identical general form among vertebrates. Almost identical general form. Not similar, not analogous. The lizard, the bird, the horse, the lamb, and you are running the same movement in the same shape in the same sequence, triggered at the same points during the recurrent behaviors of sleep and wakefulness, of feeding, of reproduction.
Now, I want to be careful because you can't dig up a fossil of a stretch. Behavior doesn't fossilize. What we have is a distribution, a behavior present across vertebrate lineages whose last common ancestor is on the order of hundreds of millions of years back. When a behavior is that conserved across that much of the tree, the parsimonious read is that it is ancient and it is load-bearing, that it was there early, and that nothing since has been able to afford to lose it. 300 million years of natural selection, a process that strips out anything useless with total indifference. And it has never once managed to delete this. That should tell you what it's for.
Watch a cat sometime. Really watch one. Not a glance. The whole sequence. Because it isn't a movement, it's a ritual. And it has an order. It wakes. It doesn't move yet. For a moment, it just lies there with its eyes half open, deciding whether the world is worth it. Then the front legs go out, all the way out, further than looks necessary, claws unsheathed and splayed hard into the carpet. The spine drops into a hollow. That long, slow wave rolls from the shoulders all the way down to the base of the tail. The back legs go rigid one at a time, each one extended, held, released. Then the jaw cracks open, wide. Wider than a mouth that size should go. And then, only then, the cat stands up, walks away, and goes and kills something.
The cat isn't doing yoga. The cat isn't loosening up. The cat is arming itself. Every joint through its full range, every sensor polled, every claw confirmed. It ran the diagnostic came back clean, and now it goes to work. That's the shape of the thing. Pandiculation is a readiness ritual. It sits precisely at the boundary between the safest moment in an animal's life and the most dangerous one. You were unconscious. Now you are about to be exposed, moving, visible, hunting, being hunted. The transition from the den to the world is the moment you find out whether the body works.
So the machine checks every time before it commits. For 300 million years, that check had a purpose. The animal that woke up and confirmed its body was online before it moved was the animal that could sprint when the shape came out of the grass. The animal that skipped the check, occasionally, found out the hard way. Selection did the rest. And then there's you. You wake up in a heated room. There is nothing in the grass. There is no grass. The most dangerous thing that will happen to you today is a message from your manager, and your body still runs it. Every morning of your life, before your eyes open, an ancient system performs a full weapons check on an organism that will spend the day sitting in a chair. It arms you, it calibrates you, it confirms that the machine is combat ready. And then you go and check your phone. The ritual is intact. The hunt is gone. Nobody told the reflex. There's one more thing, though, and it's the part that changes how this whole thing feels. It's about what happens when it stops. Here's the thing about a program that has run every day since before you were born. You only notice it when it breaks. Remember what Wolosinski argued about the fetus, that fetal yawning indicates harmonious progress in the development of the brainstem and the peripheral neuromuscular function. Now turn that over. If the presence of the pattern signals that the deep machinery is developing in good order, then the pattern is a window. It's a behavior you can watch from the outside that reports on a system you cannot otherwise see. That is a strange and slightly unnerving thing to be true about yourself. Something you do without thinking every morning is a live readout of the health of the oldest part of your brain. It has been broadcasting since before you were born. You've just never been the one reading it. And in the clinic, yawning that goes wrong is taken seriously. Excessive yawning, yawning that arrives with no arousal transition behind it, can accompany real neurological conditions. Not because the yawn is the disease, because the yawn sits so deep in the brainstem that when it starts behaving strangely, something upstream of it is being disturbed. I want to be precise here, because this matters. Nobody diagnoses anything by watching you stretch. That's not a claim the literature makes, and it's not one I'm making. The point is subtler, and I think stranger. The point is that this reflex is so ancient and so deep that it is more reliable than you are. It runs when you're unconscious. It runs in the womb before there's a mind to run it. It runs in a body under anesthesia coming back up. It's still running in the last years of a life when a great deal else has gone quiet. It doesn't need you. It never did. You are the thing that got built on top of it. And one day, it will stop. Something will fire for the last time on a morning like any other, in a body that has done it every day for decades, and it will not fire again. And that will happen, without ceremony, because it never once needed your attention to work. So, tomorrow morning, you'll surface out of the dark, somewhere in your hypothalamus, in a nucleus the size of a grain of rice. A cascade will fire on a schedule you don't control. The clamp on your spinal cord will lift, and before your eyes are open, before there's a you in there to have an opinion about it, your arms will go up, and your spine will arch, and your jaw will crack, and every muscle you own will pull to its limit at once. The bottle gets shaken. The gel breaks. Every sensor in your body takes a fresh reading. The map gets overwritten. The machine reports that it is ready. Ready for a hunt that is not coming, in a world that has not existed for 10,000 years, on behalf of an animal that no longer needs it. And then, it hands the body back to you. And you get up, and you make coffee, and you never think about it once. You've been told your whole life that you stretch because you're stiff. You don't. You stretch because for 300 million years, every single one of your ancestors woke up in a world that would kill them if their body didn't work. And every one of them checked first. Not one of them skipped it. That's why you're here. So tomorrow, when it happens, notice it. 6 seconds. That's all it takes. 6 seconds where something older than your species borrows your body, makes sure you still work, and gives it back.
You didn't stretch this morning. You were inspected.